Recently, we saw the release of the latest film from Illumination Studios, Migration, which tells the story of a family of ducks and their adventures as they attempt to undertake their first migration from New England to Jamaica. And yeah, honestly, coming into this film, I was a little bit uncertain. For the most part, I do enjoy Illumination movies. They're just pure light entertainment. They don't try too hard to be something they're not. They're there to make you laugh and enjoy yourself, but outside of Despicable Me and Minions, I don't think I could easily, off the top of my head, name an Illumination film that exists outside the mega franchises. Yeah, if you told me one, I think I'd remember it, but beyond that, not really. They don't have that much name brand for me, so I was a little bit nervous about Migration due to that forgettability factor. But then I checked its stats just to get a yardstick before I watched it, and it actually has rather decent scores on Rotten Tomatoes. A 72% aggregate score from critics, and an 87% score from audiences. And that's not bad at all. And then at the box office, so far it's grossed $105 million off $75 million. At least as of recording this. And well, it's not like it's a record-breaking gross, and in fact it is the studio's lowest grossing opening weekend of all time, but it did bounce back after that, so it seems to be holding steady and making some money, but we'll see how far that goes. Regardless, so far I think it's a success. And I really enjoyed myself. Was it hitting that top tier? Is it going to be an Academy Award contender? No. But it was a lot of fun, and it was a good way to spend an hour and 20 minutes. But let's dive a little bit deeper, shall we? Okay, so it's an animated movie. We want good animation in an animated film. That's 100% necessary. It's not a high bar to reach either these days to have a film that genuinely looks good. And there are just so many different visual styles on offer these days. But this does mean that it can be hard to set yourself apart from the rest. But I kind of felt like this film did that. Compared to other Illumination films, it was a bit more muted. Gone with the super crazy color schemes, the brightness, the artificialness, replaced with a more natural color palette, softer, more subdued. It sort of reminded me of if you took a traditionally animated film and then turned it into a computer animation later on. That's what it felt like to me, at least. And I think it worked very well, as the film genuinely looks really good. Eye-catching and engaging, but not needing to go for that photorealistic vibe that a lot of films are using these days. It was stylized, and I think it set itself apart because of that. That being said, I'm really loving this new era of animation recently. In the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of new design choices from all the major studios. They're risk-taking, and I like it. And here it worked well. And I was especially impressed that they managed to make the ducks feel so visually distinct from one another, but through such little difference in their design. Ducks are pretty uniform animals across the board, but with slight feather changes here and there, slight changes to the eyes, the bills, whatever, suddenly you have a whole different character that you're looking at, and you can tell who it is just at a glance. You know who it is once you've been watching that movie for just a little while, and I found that especially impressive that they managed to do that. I mean, the uncle, the dad, and the son are all the exact same color and also pretty much the same size, and yet you can easily tell who's who. That's impressive. And so already we've got 1/3 of the holy trinity of animated films, audio, visuals, and narrative, being an overwhelming success. That's the visuals. So we may as well move on to the next category, the audio. So we're talking music and voice performances. For the soundtrack, it wasn't bad, but I'll be honest, I can't remember much about the score at all. So I guess you'd say it's a little bit forgettable. It ties the movie together, I'm sure, but I wasn't wowed by it. And I'm definitely not sitting here thinking about certain tracks or themes that I want to listen back to. So yeah, it wasn't noticeably bad or anything like that, but it just faded into the background completely, which I don't think is something that you really want. You want that part to pop too. But that being said, where the film truly shines in terms of sound is the voice acting. My God, it was just so many great performances. Everybody has a distinct way of speaking, different personalities. Every actor's giving it their all. Even the no Wikipedia page, presumably child actors, put on top-level performances, especially whoever voiced the daughter. My God, one of the most accurate portrayals of a younger sister I've ever seen. A lot of times in these sorts of films, you'll have one or two good to great performances, but also a bunch of performances that are either inexperienced and thus not quite up to snuff, or are simply phoning it in because they're a big name actor and it's a voice role. They're here for the paycheck and nothing else. They want an easy ride. But this movie did not have that vibe. There was a lot of stellar performances from an unexpectedly star-studded cast. My God, really top-tier casting job here, and great performances, great directing, excellent. Which brings us to the story, and there's lots of elements to break down here, like I said. The movie revolves around the tale of the Mallard family, who, after years of staying at their pond at the existence of Mac Mallard, the father of the family, due to his general fears and anxieties about them all getting brutally murdered or eaten by predators, decide, due to the prodding of his family and the realization that he's holding them back, to all depart on a grand migration to Jamaica. They depart on a journey that sees them face predators in a swamp, battle a chef in New York City, to free a parrot who knows the way to Jamaica, discover a duck cult who prays to their farmers and live a pampered life where their every need and whim is catered to, and who are about to be sacrificed to the aforementioned chef. They get kidnapped by the chef, who has a super spy chopper thing that can track ducks wherever they go and apparently fly on its own. How? And they end up whipping this dude yet again and make their way to Jamaica, after which they decide to travel the world. It's a pretty happy and uplifting ending, but I'd argue that the actual plot kind of just exists. It isn't all that strong, and it's the other elements that surround it that stand out far more and serve to distract your attention away from the rather weak and disconnected storytelling. Like, for what it is, a fun little road trip film, it is good. The narrative never kicks into high gear, and each little adventure almost feels like its own self-contained episode, disconnected from what's around it. Honestly, if you slapped this entire storyline into a miniseries, I think it would work a lot better. But for a film, it falls short. But that being said, where the narrative makes up for that is in the wide array of exciting and interesting characters, all of whom get their own chance to shine. All of whom are diverse and interesting, and have clear arcs of their own. From the dad, Mac, who goes from an anxious warrior who's holding his family back, to a controlling leader of the expedition who wants to keep his family safe, to, by the end, a daredevil. The mum, who undergoes growth in a somewhat opposite way, becoming more understanding of why her husband was so safety-focused. We see the children evolve, mostly the son, let's be fair, into true heroes. The daughter's mostly there for cute factor and comic relief. We then have a bunch of super engaging and memorable side characters, the creepy swamp herons, the gangster pigeons led by Chump, the Jamaican parrot who desperately wants to get home and then becomes a very enthusiastic member of the team once the ducks free him. Seriously, the character writing here? Off the charts. But beyond the characters, I also love the little references to other genres and films that we'd see as we go through those episodic little mini-plots. The Swamp, which was a straight-up horror movie, something kind of like The Visit, and then they hit New York City, and of course it's suddenly like a bit of a gangster heist film. The Sanctuary for Ducks becomes a horror movie of a different kind, maybe kind of like The Truman Show almost, something similar to that, or The Promised Neverland if you've seen that show. And then we have Chicken Run vibes right at the end, where they're on the chopper and then they arrive in paradise. Like I said, they all feel very separate narratively, like different episodes of the same show, and there is that disconnect, but they're also so fun and silly that I think it pulls it off regardless. And then of course we've got the dialogue and the scripting. It's really, really good as far as Illumination goes. A lot of their films tend to go for the lowbrow humor. You know, I love that. It makes me feel like a little kid again. But here, they strayed away from that easy humor, from the overt slapstick every 5 seconds, from the fart jokes. And they crafted something a lot different, relying more on the way the characters speak and what they're actually saying, rather than what they're doing to try to make you laugh. Did every joke land? Probably not, but enough of them did to make it well worth my time. And so yeah, a good movie, a solid 80 minutes of fun, and that's important. It was not too long, didn't overstay its welcome. That's what I like to see. And since we seem to be coming into an era of sequels, as they're what drives profits these days for the big studios, one of our big animated studios releasing original IP that actually succeeds and earns some money is something worth celebrating. And so with all that being said, these have just been my opinions and I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the film if you've seen it? Did you like it? Do you hate it? If you haven't seen it, do you want to see this movie? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment and subscribe and let me know.